It's 3:31. I can see an attendee list has been populated, so maybe we'll kick off then. Good afternoon and welcome everyone to the launch of HK45's second Fireside Chat series, showcasing female talent in arbitration. My name is Suraj Sajnani. I'm a member of the HK45 committee, and I'm an associate at King & Wood Mallesons. I'm joined here today by not one, but two talented females in arbitration. It gives me great pleasure to introduce to you our guest speaker, Catherine Mun. And on behalf of HK45, I would like to thank Catherine very much for taking the time to speak with us today. We're very, very grateful for this opportunity. Catherine's a partner at Lee & Partners. And many of you watching will know that Catherine needs little introduction as she is a fixture in the Hong Kong arbitration community. Nonetheless, we will tell you a little bit more about her in just a little while. Catherine will be interviewed by Yvonne Sheck, a consultant at Clifford Chance, and my newly minted colleague on the HK45 committee as well. Before handing over the reins to Yvonne, I would like to tell you a little bit about HK45. HK45 is the HKIAC's young practitioner group for those interested in arbitration in Asia and beyond. Although the name is HK45, you do not need to be in Hong Kong, nor do you need to be under the age of 45 to join as a member. We welcome the young and the young at heart. Our key engagement with members is through events, and this year we've turned the limitations of the pandemic into an opportunity for us. While we cannot have in-person events to meet all of you, we've instead turned to hosting events that would otherwise have not been possible had we been limited to in-person events. This includes engaging with and interviewing speakers from all over the world across several time zones. So if you're interested in joining some great events, connecting with practitioners with shared interests, becoming a regional ambassador, writing for our newsletter, or joining our annual pub quiz, email hk45@hkiac.org to sign up and follow us on LinkedIn. With that, I will leave you in Yvonne's very capable hands to tell you a little bit about Catherine.
Thank you so much, Suraj, for that introduction. And thanks everyone for joining us today for the HK45 Fireside Chat. I am really excited today to be speaking with Catherine Mun, who, as Suraj said, is quite well known to many of us already in the arbitration community. When I spoke to Catherine earlier this week, she pointed out to me that one of the characters in her Chinese name means reason or logic, and perhaps this was already an early indication that Catherine was destined to be a lawyer. Just by way of really brief introduction, Catherine undertook her legal studies in both common law and civil law jurisdictions. She started at the University of Hong Kong and Oxford University, and then she attended Tsinghua University to complete an LLB in PRC law, and has also completed the postgraduate diploma in international commercial arbitration at the Queen Mary University in London. And after spending several years with international law firms in Hong Kong, Catherine is now a partner at Lee & Partners. She sits on the HKIAC Council, having previously been a member of the Proceedings Committee. And of course, Catherine is regularly appointed as an arbitrator and is now on the panel of arbitrators of the HKIAC, the ICC and CTAC, just to name a few. Catherine is also a solicitor advocate of the Hong Kong courts, and she is a member of the Hong Kong Law Society's arbitration committee. Now, before I speak to Catherine, I'll just remind the audience here that we do have a Q&A function on Zoom, so please feel free to type in any questions you have during the interview, and we'll invite Catherine to address as many of those as possible. Now, with that, I'm going to invite Catherine to introduce herself a bit more. Catherine, thank you so much for taking the time to chat to us today. Let's start at the beginning and invite you to tell us about what made you decide to study law and become a lawyer. And also, if you hadn't become a lawyer, what would you have done?
Yes, here's a question here today, and thank you for inviting me to today's event. I think I would say this way, what got me into law, I think that my upbringing might have played a role. My father put a lot of emphasis on reasons and reasoning in our approaches to daily lives. And as Yvonne said, my father actually has attached such a great importance to reasons that he put reasons or reasoning as a Chinese character in my name. So people call me every day by my name. And so I can't tell whether this has sort of subconsciously affected me and shaped my personality. But during my grow up, I did have an interest in engaging with people with reasoning. Of course, only when circumstances call for it, not that I'm a troublemaker asking for debates or for arguments. And at the same time, when I saw real lawyers on the television, not the movie lawyers, I admired them a bit for their ability to persuade people with good reasons. And this, I think, had also affected me. And then when I was around 14 or 15 years old, I have a best friend, and we talked about our future career. And I remember then I told my best friend that I would like to do law. And a few years later, quite coincidentally, my school teacher also advised me to do law without knowing my preference for law. So I applied to law as my degree study, and I got accepted by the Hong Kong University. So if I haven't done law, what have I done? I did have an affection for psychology. I interested in it and had taken psychology at my A level. I did consider being a psychologist, but I think after some thinking, I think that wouldn't be something that is for my career. So, looking back with my then mindset, which was quite single-minded, I think I would have just carry on to do law anyway. So not an exciting answer, but that is it. But that is it. And also, when I studied in the universities, I was lucky. I met some friends on social occasions, and just once or twice. But they introduced me to some summer internships in the law firms during my time. A long time ago, I'm talking about 20 years ago. At that time, you wouldn't see much openings at law firms, but I was lucky. I got the chance to work in the law firm during summer, and so it exposed me to different areas of law, and that also helped me to make up my mind that I would not do criminal law, I would not do family law, and also conveyancing. And then later on, when you asked me how I got into the arbitration career, that was not by my design. That is, again, by chance. Initially, I wanted to get qualified in the commercial disputes group, but I couldn't do it because the firm's practice then was they will only accept people who have been trainees in their departments. So I didn't have that opportunity. I only got into the commercial disputes department in my last sit. And then when I joined that sit, the post had already been filled up. So I was assigned to another practice group, that is the construction dispute group. The partner there, after I worked for a while, the partner there did invite me to join their team as an assistant solicitor. But because I think I liked commercial dispute more, so I declined. And I started to explore other firms. But during the course of exploring, I found more about the construction practice as well as the supervising partner. I found he was a great person to work with, and quite quite incidentally, he later asked me again whether I would be interested to join his team. And I found him very generous because he asked me again and broad-minded. So I accepted it. And this brought me to the construction practice. And because construction during my time in Hong Kong was one of the main areas that did arbitration. During my time, it was mainly construction and maritime arbitrations. So these got me into the arbitration, sort of circle. Yeah.
Excellent. Thanks, Catherine. That's a really detailed answer. And actually, it is a very unique answer in that, unlike many of us, you didn't go through the struggle of trying to figure out what they wanted to do. It seems like it was a fairly clear path for you from quite an early age, which is very impressive. Looking a little bit more at your early days in arbitration, what was the practice of arbitration like at the time? So you mentioned presumably in Hong Kong it was mostly construction and maritime arbitration. What about things like the arbitral institutions at the time, popularity of arbitration amongst lawyers, or the knowledge of its users? What was that like back then?
During that time, it was not as active as today. To me, the institutions I knew most during that time would be, of course, HKIAC and ICC. And if going to the mainland, then that would be CTAC. And also the number of lawyers compared to today was fewer in the old days, and now we have seen more different lawyers coming from different jurisdictions coming in Hong Kong to do the international arbitrations or in the region. And also the lawyers' knowledge about arbitration has also improved. I remember in the old days when we talked to the commercial department people, the lawyers in law firms, they have no idea what arbitration is. But nowadays, when you talk to the commercial lawyers, they have an understanding of what is it about, and also they know that if they come across contract provisions that touch on arbitration, they will come to the arbitration people to ask for advice. I think that's a big change, and yeah, and also of course the nature of disputes that we experienced in Hong Kong is more cross-border disputes as compared to the construction of maritime disputes about 2 decades ago.
Yeah, of course. We might come back to more of this afterwards, but looking then at the early years of your career as well, I see that about 10 years into your career, you decided then to go study a second LLB in PRC law. And perhaps this is where, where you talk about cross-border disputes, this is where it comes in. So what motivated you to study a second LLB at Tsinghua University? And what was your experience like? So were there any particular challenges, especially coming from a common law background and also studying law in Chinese?
Yeah, so I told you I did construction disputes, but there was a change later on because of the financial tsunami in 1990s, the infrastructure projects, the number of infrastructure projects had dropped down. So which means the construction market was not doing well. And then the supervising partner of me at that time is another one. He decided that we have to change directions a little bit, that is to start to branch into the international commercial disputes or cross-border disputes. So he decided that we should venture into that direction, and then we started to do arbitration initially in the mainland for foreign parties, as well as for arbitration-related court cases and court cases in the mainland. And then gradually we started to have work in Hong Kong for cross-border arbitrations. And during all these, as well as actually in my early years, I started to have contact with Chinese lawyer on my work. I remember it was in 1999, early time, when my first my first experience with them was I was at a loss in understanding the Chinese concepts, and on top of that, compared to today, the standard of the legal practice in China was not as good as today. So that compounded my difficulties in understanding what they said. So that had been in my mind at that time. But then in the following years, I also came across some Chinese-related works, which required me to understand the Chinese and to be able to communicate in Mandarin. So I thought there's a need to know Mandarin, and initially without a structure, I tried to learn Mandarin Chinese by reading novels in simplified Chinese, and also took Mandarin lessons. But then one day, an idea came. Why not? I just take a degree course in Chinese law in Chinese, and in that case, I could have the best of three worlds. I can learn Mandarin Chinese, speaking Mandarin Chinese, and also written simplified Chinese, as well as the Chinese law. And also it will help me to communicate with the PLC lawyers, and also in my work, because after knowing what the Chinese law was, as well as during the course I would have the opportunities to communicate more with those coming from the mainland. It helped a lot in understanding each other, and also when they told you about some Chinese law concepts, you could quite immediately point out to them the difference between the two systems, and then people could discuss things from those perspectives, which were more efficient and helpful, I would say.
Great. And I think for sure your dedication back then has definitely paid off. As you said, you probably got the best of three worlds now. Now, looking back then at your career to date, were there any particular highlights or lowlights even that you know, particularly memorable experiences that you would want to share with us?
Unfortunately, I haven't got any highlight or lowlight. If my client wins a case, I'm the kind of person I wouldn't be particularly happy for myself. And if my client doesn't prevail in the case, I also wouldn't feel unhappy, because more often than not, there would have been advice already given to client that would be the likely outcome. Yeah. So far, I have nothing to offer to you, but I hope one day I can share some great highlight in my career with you.
Okay, but it was smooth sailing then from the sounds of it, which is always the best possible outcome. All right, then looking at you know, the things you do now, I did have a look at your CV when I was preparing for this, and you have a very extensive and impressive CV. I do see that you have a significant number of responsibilities. So, you know, a partner at your law firm, you act as party representative and as an arbitrator. You have involvement in a number of arbitral institutions and also industry bodies and committees. You teach, you write, and obviously you have personal commitments. So what's the secret to balancing it all? Do you have any particular approach to balancing everything?
I think probably because I put something with bigger priority than others. I join all these different committees or organizations, or do these kind of things, like particularly on the education side. I do it because I'm interested in it and I enjoyed it. And I think as a citizen, where possible, if we can do some contribution to the people coming after you. So that's why I some of my work is more on the education side. And if you ask me how I balance my work and life, it's not that balanced. That's all I can.
That's good to know.
I have to give up my personal time and sometimes my sleep time in order to get myself engaged in all these different types of things. But I enjoyed it. And the good thing is, my family members, they haven't complained about it, because they know if I am around, I will only make them more busier. Which is true. What they have told me.
I'm sure that's not true, but thanks for that really frank answer. Actually, I think, you know, what you said probably resonates certainly with myself, and with, I'm sure, a lot of those listening to us, that it's not easy to balance everything. And actually, I think most of the time it feels like you're not managing to balance everything. Are there any particular aspects of your various roles that you enjoy more than others?
Actually, I'm the kind of person who enjoy the moments. So there might be moments in different committees that I enjoy. I enjoy it because I'm the kind of person who like learning.
Okay.
So if I can see some great people in the committees or organizations that I can learn from, then I got satisfaction. Sometimes you might see not that great people on the committees, but you learned it another way. Yeah, because we need to deal with different types of persons. So, you know, there are, you know, different kinds of person around, and to me, I like observing people. So I find all of this interesting.
And that's probably where the half psychologist part of you comes in as well.
Yeah. Probably.
What about outside of the law? What personal interests do you have?
I used to like traveling when I was young, but then, as I mentioned to you earlier, the digital world has changed it. I used to be able to enjoy traveling without technology, but now, even if you are traveling, you got emails, you got phone calls, and just it just destroyed the holiday. So I haven't done that much in the past 10 years. But other than that, I like reading and also exploring and learning new things.
Okay, excellent.
I do hiking every week. Yeah.
Okay. Oh, that's great balance then. There we go.
Yeah.
Okay, let's move on to a slightly different topic, or revisit one of our previous topics and talk a little bit more about the arbitration practice. Now, you mentioned earlier, you know, the changes in the arbitration community over the years, and in terms of people's knowledge. Tell us a little bit more about that, and perhaps, you know, in terms of not just the changes you've observed over the years, but then drawing on that, where do you see, you know, the key changes to be in the next, say, 5 to 10 years in the practice of international arbitration?
I think the more the near or a new development, not new, but progressing very fast, would be about technology, the online hearing. I think in future that will be done more often, particularly probably for interlocutory types of hearing, as well as for hearing which relates to the witness part. Whether everything will go virtual, we will see, because it all goes down to the users as well, whether the users are ready for doing arbitrations this way. And also, I would say the trend of the arbitration institutions to modernize their rules and to make their practice more user friendly will continue to be the case. We have seen in the past 10 years, the arbitration institution all have been very diligent in modernizing their rules. And other than that, I would say the number of people getting into the arbitration will also be increasing. Will be kept increasing because cross-border transactions will go on. To me, you will go on. The cross-border transactions and disputes are coming out from, for international arbitration, disputes come out from cross-border business. So for people who like to do disputes and would like to know different cultures and different laws, then I would say international arbitration will be something that they should consider.
Thanks for that. And actually drawing then, or looking a bit closer at what you said about, people from different cultures and the sort of, I guess, the diverse nature of arbitration. There is a lot of discussion nowadays around diversity, and that's really, diversity around those involved in the field of arbitration, whether it's within law firms, as arbitrators, within the arbitral institutions, and also amongst clients. And we're talking, not just gender, but also cultural diversity. What has been your experience in terms of diversity over the years, and how important do you think this discussion is?
I haven't come across issue about gender. To me, I got the feeling that this issue is not that prominent, probably in this part of the world. And to me, I think we basically, the general principle is we should treat women and men equal, and unless you are really in an establishment where the gender issue is so serious that there's a need to address it. But so far, I don't see this as a big issue. Although I did come across some institutions or organizations where men are more welcome than women. There are such organizations in existence. But I think the way to deal with it is to understand the history and the reasons for a particular organization to take such an approach. Once you understand it, then I think you feel better as to why this has developed in this form, and if there's a need for you to deal with them, then find a way to deal with them. Treat it as a puzzle and see what is the best way to get into the circle. And in my experience, if someone can make herself or himself interesting, with a little bit of intelligence, at least from the other side's perspective, and with some humors, usually you will be able to start communicating with the people in that circle and may even earn their respect over time.
That's actually a really good practical advice. And on that note, I think there hasn't been that much discussion necessarily about diversity over the years. Now, not to say, there was necessarily an issue or there was no issue, but I think part of what everyone recognizes now is that at the end of the day, there aren't that many, for example, female arbitrators or, females at the top of law firms. You yourself obviously are an excellent role model, but there is definitely room for more. Now, in terms of effecting change, and what I mean is, for example, there might be a pool of talent amongst young female lawyers now, and we need to promote that pool and make the most of that pool of talent. Who do you see as the right people to help effect that change? And do you have any suggestions, as to how that change might be brought about?
Because, as I said, I think everyone's treated as equal. So I will focus more on if a particular female arbitration practitioner, she has concerns about not being able to get into a particular circle, and unless she thinks that is a gender-related issue.
Mm-hmm.
Otherwise, I think the best way forward is to demonstrate oneself to be a very capable person, a reasonable person, or to have all the characteristics that people would look for an arbitration case or for arbitrator's appointment. So I think one should start with oneself to demonstrate the ability, and we hope the world is surrounded by people. They are reasonable. They have a sound mind, and then they would judge people according to their ability, rather than by their gender or by where they are coming from. And at the same time, I would suggest that if the senior people, whether they are women or men, if they see there's an issues in a particular group that has favors on a particular group of people, I think and if that is not fair, I think one should take steps or do something in order to make these people to think in some other way. So maybe of course, when you raise it, you need some skills to raise it, and also to me, it would be something that you need to be supported by reasons as well, because you need to convince these people why sticking to this group is problematic or is not. Of course, you wouldn't use the word not fair, but you would do it in a way to make them see things from those people who have been sort of deprived of the opportunities to do certain things just because historically they are not the preferred group of people. Yeah, but I think we ourselves should do something when we see things like this happening. Yeah.
Okay, so essentially, I guess what you're saying is raising awareness at the institutional level, at a senior level, but in a tactful way.
Yeah, and also they I think people need to be aware of that. If they see something that is not that fair going on, then they should say something. Yeah, they should say something. Yeah.
Of course. And on that note, turning, I guess, focusing a little bit more on your advocacy experience and your experience sitting as an arbitrator. So these are the two sides of it. I know, in addition to your advocacy experience in international arbitration, you're also a solicitor advocate of the Hong Kong courts. Now, in this capacity, did you encounter any challenges arising from cultural differences or gender differences? For example, advocating, sometimes advocates say they advocate in a second language. Did you ever encounter issues of that sort? And if so, how did you overcome them?
I don't feel any issue in relation to gender. On cultural difference, to me, I would say perhaps something to be aware of is because of the cultural difference, then in terms of understanding what's going on or what something means may be different because of the different cultural history or traditions. So when dealing with cases that involve forced border things which involve people not in the same culture as mine, I would pay extra attention in making sure that things I think I understand, I do understand it correctly. And the same is in terms of making presentations or submissions to the arbitration tribunal. You need to make sure that they understand what you are saying. And of course, sometimes there might be some bias in certain culture. there might be some people might think that some tribunal members might think that they might say something that leads you to think that they are biased. They might say, oh, you see, these people coming from which jurisdiction, and that's how they do things. When they mention the jurisdiction, you find it odd. Why you need to adjust me by attaching me to a particular jurisdiction? Because we would expect only the work that is being commented, not where someone is coming from. But I think these might not be biased as such. That might be the culture. This is the
Oh, Catherine, I think we might have slightly lost you there.
be our bias to think that others are biased.
Sorry, Catherine, I think we lost you for about 10 seconds there. You were talking about when the tribunal members refer to someone by reference to the jurisdiction, and someone might think that is a little odd, and then I think we lost you there.
Yes, and yes, it was too odd. Yes, and one point on that is we also need to bear in mind that sometimes when we think the tribunal members are biased, actually they may not have biased because in their culture, that's the way how they express themselves. Yeah. They might need to express themselves in the way that they're pointing out people coming from not Hong Kong, maybe they say coming from Shanghai, coming from Shandong, because China is so big, so that's how they are addressing people. So I think we need to when we come across things like this, we need to test it in the sense of asking other people whether this way of expression has a particular meaning, or is just something is just like routine expressions which has no importance to it. So again, it's a matter of getting to understand the culture, the nuance in culture.
Agreed. And I think you've probably implicitly answered this question already then, but given your perspective then, and as an arbitrator, you know, seeing advocates from different backgrounds, and your approach to it, does that mean, you know, it probably doesn't influence the arbitration process? So it doesn't really matter, you know, what background someone's from, whether it's a common law or civil law background, what language they have. And actually, sometimes tribunals will ask questions about this, but at the end of the day, it doesn't really affect the arbitration process or the outcome.
To me, well, it goes civil lawyers might be good at a particular aspect of the arbitration proceedings, or common law lawyers may be good at another aspect like cross-examination in international arbitrations. But I myself, I did come across civil law lawyers who were excellent in cross-examining witnesses. So everything actually goes down to experience, because at the same time we have also seen some good or not that good advocates in Hong Kong as well, and again is more about the experience. But for tribunal members, of course, there is the substance of the matter that counts. Yes.
So work hard, and it at the end of the day, it won't make a difference. Yeah. And on that note, actually, we're going to move on and try and get a little bit more advice from you for some of our audience who are young practitioners. Now, before we do that, do you want to tell us on the topic of mentors, did you have any mentors yourself throughout your career, and how have they shaped your career?
I haven't. Did you hear me?
Yes, we can hear you now.
Yes, I haven't signed up any mentorship programs, but during my journey, I've been fortunate to meet some special people at different stages who helped me to progress, and some of them I would treat them as mentors. I would treat them as mentors without their knowing, and I would say one of the biggest people which has helped very much to shape my career is a supervising partner many years ago. He just gave me lots of opportunities to do the challenging work, and also got me to do something which otherwise I wouldn't have done, like writing articles, giving seminars, and because by doing all these, you then develop the skills in doing them. Without the first time or the second time, you wouldn't have done it so easily. And this supervising partner also taught me to have an international outlook, to look things not just locally but beyond Hong Kong. So, for instance, when I was young, I may have thought that work is just doing dispute work in Hong Kong. But this supervising partner, that is the same supervising partner who said we should venture into the international arbitration. Is he who brought me to Beijing. Before that, I didn't go to China since I was 3 or 4 years old. I went to China once when I was 3 or 4 years old. But since then, I had never set foot in the mainland until this supervising partner brought me to mainland, and then this had opened up many opportunities as a result, and also gave me some foot to discover some more new things. And you know, I think mentors, it varies from person to person. Some persons might want to have a kind of very stable mentors, whom you may talk to him or her very often. But to me, I'm the kind of person, I would approach my mentor when I have a need to approach him or her. But if they are people who would like to share your experience, or who would like to give you guidance, when you ask them, they're always available to help. And just like I also have some mentees myself from the university. If they find me to ask for help or to ask my information on anything, more often than not, I would be more than happy to talk with them and see whether I can give them some more information to think about and to mull over some difficult issues.
It sounds like having mentors in your career has been critical in shaping what you've done so far, and it sounds like that's something that every young practitioner should look to. And actually, what you described in terms of the mentorship you went through, it sounds a little bit like there was a sponsor as well. So in addition to giving you advice, it was someone perhaps who gave you opportunities and helped promote you and put you out there. Is that a fair summary?
Yes, and I would also add, I told you that I've met some special people at different stages, and I know some of them, they have been helping me without my knowing. I might have gone to some functions, and then some people who don't know me will say some good things about me because there's another person who have been saying some kind words about me. So I think I think these people are very generous, because I personally I might not have even had a dinner, a lunch, or even speak to these people socially, but because probably of some work either I'm on the other side or I am the arbitrator. I got the chance to be seeing what I've done, and these people are very generous in helping me throughout. And for some of them, I'm still guessing who they are.
You've impressed so many people. It's been impossible to keep track of.
That's my thinking. I think there are some people helping me, because otherwise, sometimes I think why I would have got into something. Yeah.
That's fantastic. And then looking back now, if in terms of advice, so if you now were to talk to yourself at the beginning of your career, your younger self, what's one piece of advice that you would give your younger self?
No, nothing.
Or two or three, if you need to say more.
Nothing, because I'm the kind of person, when I decide on something, I thought through it. So basically, I think I would have done the same.
Yeah.
Yeah, I would have done.
Just
basically
do follow your instinct, which is always correct. That's great advice. Now, okay, so in terms of advice then for those in our audience today, so what advice or tips would you have, for example, for a young lawyer now who's just starting out in their career?
I would say, firstly, work hard. Work hard. You need to work hard for our career. It's the experience that counts. If you haven't got cases to do, then you don't have the experience. Then what's the point of marketing or promoting yourself? And to act professionally, which is important, you have got different rules and conduct that go with it. And to maintain integrity, I think for actually as a person and also for our career, this is very important. And also before all this, of course, one have to make sure that, not make sure, but to develop an interest in law. If you don't like what you have been doing, I doubt whether one can excel in doing that work. And be sensible and have common sense, which is very important. And common sense, you need to expose yourself to the outside world in order to get better common sense. So on these, I would suggest youngsters, if they can manage, they should go to, maybe when you are very young, go to the seminars, go to the talks, to meet people, and to learn things there. And when they have accumulated a few years experience, then I think they should consider joining some committees, because by joining the committees, you have meetings, you can learn from the senior people on the committees, you learn how to discuss things through, how to express your ideas, and make you more comfortable in future when you're doing some public events. So all of these are very helpful. And also, I think we shouldn't be afraid of being asked to do new things. I've seen some youngsters, they say when you ask them to do something they haven't done before, they immediately say, "Oh, I haven't done that before." How should I do it? My advice is, do your homework first. Try it. You should have tried. You should have tried new things, because for disputes, every dispute is new. If one is resistant to new things, then I don't think dispute is something that's for him or her. And when you are given these challenging tasks, spend time to think about it, to find the solutions by yourself first before talking to the seniors. Of course, in your thought process, you have got some stumbling blocks, and you need to clear. Of course, you can go to your seniors to ask for assistance. But when you ask for assistance, at least you have to have done your own work rather than without thinking and then going to the seniors for answers immediately. And also I would say don't be shy in asking for help from mentors, what you think are mentors, or even from your peers. I think even up to today, when I consider some legal issues, I would like to talk it through with one or two colleagues or my friends, my best friends, in order to make sure that my thinking process is on the right track. So it's good to share your opinions or views with others rather than doing things on your own.
And we'll add to that, listen to more HK45 Fireside Chats like the ones with you right now. And then one more, Catherine. What about in terms of international arbitration? You know, as you said, it's much more popular now, and in many ways it's much more competitive. And tying that in with what we were talking about earlier, would you have any particular advice for females aspiring to develop their careers in international arbitration?
You have to have an environment to learn international arbitration. So find a law firm or a chambers that has this kind of work for you to learn. If you are not that lucky to go into firms with international arbitration practice, then I would suggest to focus on the disputes work first, because if you're doing well after a few years, I'm not encouraging people to move firms, but if there's a progression to another place that suits you better, then I think it's right to do that. It's right to do that. And also because international arbitration, as I mentioned, is cross-border, it touches on different cultures. So if one has an excellent language skills and also with an international outlook, there is and in this part of the world, if you have got time, I would recommend the youngsters to learn the Chinese law or civil law, so that you know what the other legal system is like, and this helps a lot when you have clients other than clients coming from common law.
Thanks, Catherine. Those are really, really helpful tips and quite good practical advice, I think. And I think many of those listening today will appreciate that. You'll be relieved to know that we don't have any more questions for you, but don't get too comfortable just yet. We're going to wrap things up on a lighter note by playing one round of rapid fire questions today. So I'm going to ask you a series of this or that type questions, and the trick is to be as quick as possible and answer the first thing that comes to mind. Now, are you ready, Catherine?
Yes.
All right, here we go. Book or movie?
Book.
Hiking holiday or beach holiday?
Beach.
Beach holiday, okay. Dog or cat?
Cat.
Texting or talking on the phone?
Talking on the phone.
Morning person or night owl?
Owl.
Dinner at home or eating out?
At home.
Well, we're getting lots of opportunities to do that right now. Thank you. I think we've gotten to know another side of you in those 30 seconds, Catherine. That's all we have time for today. Catherine, thank you so much for your time and for speaking to us. I'm sure I speak on behalf of the HK45 and for everyone in the audience when I say that was really inspiring. And thanks so much for the helpful advice and for sharing your experiences with us.
And thank you, Yvonne, and also to CIP for organizing these. Thank you.
Thanks, Catherine. And of course, thank you to everyone for listening in today. Don't forget to register for the next HK45 Fireside Chat, which is going to be on 15th of January in the new year. And in the meantime, everyone, we wish you a happy and safe holiday season. Thanks again, Catherine.
Thank you.